Hey guys, and thanks for joining me for another video. So back outdoors again. Today I've got a bit of a special review for you really. This is a review that I wanted to do of the Rolex GMT Master 2, and I know you've seen probably dozens and dozens of reviews of this watch on YouTube. You put a search in and you'll probably come up with hundreds of different reviews on this watch, but what I wanted to focus on today, really, rather than focusing on one specific model, because quite often the reviews you see are of one specific model, like the Pepsi or the root beer or the Batman. I just wanted to kind of review the watch from an owner's perspective, and not necessarily to review one of the specific models, but as you can see, I've got two here, and I wanted to do like really just an owner's review of both of these watches. Before I carry on, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel so far. Really appreciate it. It's great to see the numbers going up. I really do appreciate the amount of you that are out there that are actually interested in the content and leaving some nice comments and likes. So I do appreciate that, and thank you to everybody who has subscribed so far. It just gives me, I guess, the enthusiasm to keep making more content. Being able to see that people actually want to watch it. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll proceed with my kind of, like I said, an owner's review. You can see here that I've got two. Very fortunate to have two Rolex GMT Master 2s. On the left here, this one is what you'll probably refer to as the Batman or the Batgirl or the Bruce Wayne. This is the 1267110 BLNR. And on the right here, this is one that will be commonly referred to as the Sprite. I like to call it the Riddler. I think it's a more appropriate name, or if you're going to give a watch a nickname, which is a bit silly really, isn't it? But if you're going to give a watch a nickname, I prefer to call this one the Riddler. And this is the 1267120 VTNR. Now, before I go into like the review itself, I just wanted to talk, because this is, let's get the elephant out of the room here. These watches are hard to get. I know that, I understand that, and so I know that a lot of people, the first question they ask is not, oh, what do you think of the watch? Do you like it? What have you? It's how did you get it? So I got it the same way as everybody else tries to get a GMT Master 2, which is through an authorised dealer. I'm very fortunate here in New Zealand. I've got a relationship with two authorised dealers here in Auckland. There are only two actually authorised dealers in the whole of New Zealand, and I've made sure that I've established a relationship with both, because you don't want to keep all your eggs in one basket. I think you'll all agree with that. And really, if I were to boil down very simply, how did I get these watches? I'll boil it down to three key things for you. Number one is have a spend history. You will not get one of these watches unless you have a spend history with your authorised dealer. They just will not sell it to you. And I know that you can search the web and you may hear stories about people that just got one of these without a spend history. Well, look, I'm going to say to you now, guys, if you want to roll that dice and get yourself on a list for a GMT Master 2 and hope that you'll get one with no spend history, you've got about a 10,000 to 1 chance of getting one without a spend history. So key thing is, number one, have a spend history. If you've got a relationship with an authorised dealer where you've bought maybe Tudors, Amigas or Tag Heuers in the past, you're going to stand a much better chance of actually getting one of these if you get on the list. So spend history, critical. Don't think that you can do it without one, guys. Number two is have face-to-face contact. Don't just put yourself on the list for a watch like this and think that eventually you'll get the call, and maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time you'll eventually get the call. I can honestly say to you guys that unless you have regular face-to-face contact with your authorised dealer, you're not going to get one of these. They need to see you. They need to know you. You need to build a relationship with them. And if you're not prepared to go and do that with your authorised dealer, then you're probably not going to get one of these, even with a spend history. And number three, guys, and this is probably the most important one of all, is be authentic, be yourself. Where a lot of people think that they have to sort of pretend or put on an act, and maybe the authorised dealer is looking for a certain type of clientele, a certain type of customer before they'll hand this watch out to them. No, I think the key thing is, guys, is whoever you are and whatever you are, whatever you do in life, whether you're a rich man or a poor man, just be yourself. You know, cover off the first two things with a spend history. That demonstrates that you've got money and that you're loyal. Have lots of face-to-face contact with the authorized dealer so you can build a relationship. And the third thing is just be yourself. And I promise you guys, if you do those three things, eventually you'll get one. So anyway, I promised I'd get that out of the way quickly and get into the review. So now I'm not sure which one to pick up and actually talk about in detail. So what I'll probably do over the course of this review is just pick each one up individually and just talk about this one for a little while and then move on to the next one. But to get the basic specs out of the way, guys, this has a 40mm diameter case size, which is, you know, it's quite a nice size. I think it's almost the perfect size, you know, for a watch for me. I'll just put it on the wrist. I've got a range of watches between 36mm and 45, and this one obviously just sits perfectly in the middle of those, really, right in that sweet spot for me of 40mm. It has a lug width. The lug to lug gap here is 20mm, so really nice size. Fits a lot of bracelets, a lot of bands, a lot of NATOs and leathers that you can put on this, although I think to take this off of its beautiful bracelet and put it on anything other like a NATO or a leather strap, I think it would be sacrilege, if I'm honest with you. It'd be like, you know, putting tomato ketchup on your roast potatoes. You know, why would you do it? Why would you ruin them? The thickness of the watch is really critical. So this watch, and I call it thickness, it's almost the thinness of it. It's a 12mm thick watch. So from the top to the bottom there, 12mm. So it sits really nice and cozy and tight to the wrist. It slips beautifully under a shirt cuff. Very subtle, very svelte watch. And one of the most critical dimensions is the lug to lug, which is the distance from the top to the bottom, which really has a significant effect when the watch is on the wrist, because it helps the watch look more proportional depending on your wrist size. So the lug to lug on this one is 48mm, and as I've mentioned before in previous videos, anything over about 49 or 50 is getting quite large. So proportionally, I think this watch is perfect in every way. It's just the perfect dimension for a medium sized wrist, and it'll also put up with a small wrist and a particularly large wrist as well. Moving on to the finish, guys, I think the finish on these is lovely. There's a really nice mixture of mirror polished, if you like, on the sides here, as you can see, and then this is the Oyster bracelet, of course. This has mirror polished center links with satin polished outer links, but there's a lot of satin polishing on this watch as well. The bracelet's got a lot of satin on it. It's mixed nicely along the sides here with the mirror polish. And the back, I'll just show you the back of the watch as well. There's a nice mixture there of satin finishing and just that lovely mirror finishing on the chamfer there of the case back. I just think that finishes it off beautifully, and you just get this lovely kind of reflection. And there's something about the 904L. This is a oyster steel grade 904L, which is a form of non-ferrous stainless steel. It's actually commonly used. It's not a grade which is specific to Rolex per se. It's a very commonly used grade in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, in very highly corrosive environments, but also critically, 904L is used in pharmaceutical environments because it's also a very hard stainless steel, so it resists a lot of abrasion. A lot more than, say, 304 or 316 would do, which are the more common two grades of stainless steel. So because it's a slightly harder wearing grade of stainless steel, it obviously requires a different skill set when you're polishing it, and it actually has a very different sheen. I think it has a very different finish to a standard 316L watch, in that I think it's got more of a kind of a muted finish to it, particularly with the satin finishing. Almost in some lights it looks kind of, I'm going to say silvery rather than steely. In the light in particular, it's got a lovely silvery satin finish to it. I think it's actually really kind of almost like a toned down finish compared to like a mirror polished even 316L. So it's got a different look about it on the wrist, that's for sure. Also, of course, the bezel on these is made of ceramic, so this is what's known as a Cerachrome bezel. On the VTNR, it's black on the top and green on the bottom, and on the On the BLNR, it's black on the top and blue on the bottom. Not quite sure how this one ended up being referred to as a nickname of the Sprite, by the way. It still baffles me a little bit. I think the Riddler is a lot more appropriate, even just for the colourway, if I'm honest. Now, interestingly, a couple of other things to point out, particularly with the bezel itself, is the inlay. These are kind of reverse embossed, if you like, these numbers on here, and the inlays of the numbers have platinum in them. So that's a nice little touch, isn't it? And also with regards, whilst we're talking about some of the more precious metals that are in the watch, all of the hands and the hour markers they're all coated in white gold. So it's got a nice sort of luster to it. There's a little bit of precious metal in there that nobody knows about apart from you, really. It's not the sort of thing that's obviously easy to detect whilst you're wearing it on the wrist, but you know you've got a nice little bit of precious metal in there. And the nice thing about that is, of course, with the white gold markers and the white gold hands, is that you know that they're never going to tarnish and heaven forbid corrode. You know, they'll always be looking as beautiful as they did the day you got the watch. So really, really impressed with that. The other thing that I'm impressed with, and it's you wouldn't know it, or that the layperson wouldn't know it when they see it on your wrist, is that the lume on these watches is absolutely superb. They've got the Chromolite lume. It's Rolex's proprietary brand of lume, and it absolutely glows like a lighthouse, guys. It's a beautiful lume. It's got a blue tint to it, and trust me, I very frequently wear watches through the night, just for no other reason than sometimes I wake up in the night and I just want to know quickly what the time is without putting my phone on, and the lume on these just absolutely glows all night, even when you haven't really sort of gone out of your way to charge it. It's got great lume. Now, the movement in these watches, so obviously it's a GMT watch, so it runs on the 3285 Rolex GMT movement. It has a power reserve of 70 hours. It's got a -2 plus seconds per day, -2 plus 2 seconds per day accuracy, and both of these watches are running easily at about +1. It's shock resistant, it's magnetic resistant, it's what you'd expect from a Rolex movement. It's a very robust movement. It's not beautifully decorated. They don't need to put a sapphire case back on this so that you can see the decoration on the movement, because there really isn't any. And to be frank, guys, why would you want a sapphire case back on this beautiful case back? I absolutely love the steel case back on these. The other thing I just wanted to mention also, by the way, was just kind of the fit and finish of these watches. I mean, yes, they're beautiful watches to look at. There's no question. They're accurate. They do their job. But honestly, guys, the actual, and this is where Rolex, kind of goes. I'm not going to say it flies under the radar, because it certainly doesn't when you're a Rolex owner. But for guys that don't own a Rolex and kind of criticise Rolex, for pricing and for scarcity, there's a reason why these watches are so popular, guys. And it's not just because they're pretty to look at and robust, but the actual finish on these watches, in terms of the way everything is machined, it's absolutely second to none. I mean, one of the tests I have for machine tolerances on, if you like, on a watch is quite often the way I'll show you here, the way the end link here transitions into the case. So you've got the spring bar going through the end link here into obviously holes either side of the lug. Now, quite often I can, on other watch brands, I can wiggle those around. I can actually get quite a lot of play in there, and that's down to the machine tolerances between the end link, in other words, the width of the end link versus the width or the gap that it's got to slot into. Quite often, you're going to see a reasonable tolerance in there, and you'll be able to not only move the end link side to side, but you'll be able to wiggle it up and down, and you'll see gaps opening and closing. I've had that on Seamasters. I've had that on Seiko. Seiko's terrible for it, but even a lot of the higher end Omegas, like the Speedmaster and the Seamaster, they haven't quite mastered the art of getting that fit absolutely spot on. And that's one of the reasons why this bracelet, I think, is so comfortable, is because it's almost like it's welded into the case. It's so tight. I would not like to try and get those spring bars out of there, guys. That is going to be a painful process. So that's why both of these watches will never come off of the bracelets here, because and that's the thing with Rolex, that the bracelets are second to none. They're absolutely superb. comfortable, but also just fantastic tolerances. So as you can see here, whilst we're on the subject of bracelets, I was very fortunate actually. I managed to get not only the Oyster but also the Jubilee bracelet for these watches. But I got both of these watches, by the way, within just a few weeks of each other, just by chance. One from each AD, and this one came up first, the Riddler, and literally within a week or two, I got a call for the Batman from my other AD. Now that was just coincidence, that was just amazing timing. So fortunately I was in a position where I could get them both in a very short period of time, so I snapped them up. I was never going to get another opportunity, but you know, the choice I had when I got the VTNR, the Riddler, I had no choice on the bracelet on this one. They said, Mark, we've got a Sprite. I've been given permission to offer it to you, because that's how it works when you get to this kind of level. Would you like it? And it was on the Oyster. That's the only one they had. I said, yes, please, thank you very much. And then with this one, I was actually given the choice. I was given, which is great, fantastic service from the authorised dealer. He said to me, Mark, I've got the Oyster and the Jubilee. You know, which would you prefer? And of course, because I'd already picked up the VTNR with the Oyster, I thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be good if I'm going to get another GMT Master 2, which I wasn't expecting, I'll get it on the Jubilee. So that was the reasoning behind me getting it on the Jubilee, was purely to give me that kind of variation. So not only have I got a lefty and a righty, but I've got an Oyster and a Jubilee. So I kind of think from a GMT Master perspective, I'm done. And of course the logical question to ask, which I'm sure you were all thinking, is, well, which one do you prefer in terms of bracelet? And I'm going to be really kind of I guess non-committal on this. I think they're both brilliant. I think they're both awesome bracelets. The Jubilee, without question, is more comfortable. It is just a much more comfortable, not much more, that's probably an exaggeration. It's a more comfortable watch to wear on the wrist. So I'll just pop it back on again for you here now. You know, the links are obviously, you know, very close together, so you get a much more, I guess, wrist hugging kind of feel on this watch. It's also kind of a prettier, I think, prettier bracelet to look at as well, isn't it? So it's got there's a lot of flexibility in the links here. You know, I can pretty much screw them all up like that, look, and you know, and that's the great thing about these Jubilees, is they're so malleable that I can kind of do that with I know some people are probably screaming at the screen now watching me do this, but I'm certainly being careful not to scratch the watch while I do this. But yeah, you can. This just demonstrates how how flexible this bracelet is, and therefore how comfortable it is on the wrist. Whereas the Oyster, of course, the links are a lot longer. They are curved, as you can see there, so they do sit lovely and comfortably to the wrist. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I've got no complaints about this bracelet. It's not quite as comfortable. I can still screw it up a little bit, but as you can see, not as much as I could the Jubilee. So it's certainly got plenty of flex to it. But I'll just pop this on the wrist so you can see it again. As you can see, I wear my watches on the right, so a lot of people will say that the VTNR, the Riddler was the perfect watch for me. But there you go. That's what it looks like. I think the Oyster bracelet looks more sporty, a lot more sporty, and that's kind of how I would separate these two watches, if I'm honest with you. And if you're looking to decide which bracelet to go for, if you want to put yourself on the list, or you want to change your selection with your authorized dealer, and you just want to decide, what exact bracelet configuration to go for, I would say my advice is, if you're looking for a sportier look, definitely go for the Oyster. If you're looking for a more dressy, formal look, because I think this is a more dressy, formal looking bracelet, then go for the Jubilee. And that's kind of, but I will say each one transitions quite easily into the other, so I can easily, wear this. Easily wear this in a formal environment. It wouldn't be out of place at all. And likewise, you can easily wear a Jubilee in a kind of a relaxed, social, sporty environment, and it won't be out of place. But each, I guess, lends itself a little bit more. Now, in terms of the clasp, because we all love a good clasp, don't we? I just want to show you this as well. So this is pretty much, I must say, I do wish, say wish, I think I would have preferred the GMT Master 2 to have had the same clasp as the Submariner and the Sea Dweller, in that it has the you know, the ability for you to move it in 2mm increments up and down. This one doesn't have it. It's pretty much the same as a sub clasp apart from that. So it's got the, obviously the fold there, clicks down like so, and another lovely click there. So it's a very precise, very well machined, well designed clasp. You can give yourself a little bit of extra height if you like, or you can, if say it's a hot day and your watch has got a little bit tight on your wrist, you can give yourself an extra 5mm there by just unhinging it, if you like, from this tiny little hinge here, and it just snaps back in. Really nice, satisfying snap, that is. I mean, in terms of satisfying snaps, I think that's probably one of the better ones out there in the watch world, when you snap that back in. It is also, when you're sizing it at the AD, you can actually move it up or down. So right now there's a pin going through here, a spring bar going right through here, and when you're getting this watch sized, if it's just a tiny bit too small or a tiny bit too big, you can get them to just pull the spring bar out and just move it 2mm backwards or 2mm forwards. But I will say that's actually really, really fiddly and awkward to do, and I wouldn't trust anybody apart from my authorised dealer to do that for me. So yeah, look, it would certainly benefit from having the Submariner type here, just there, where you could just move it up and down in 2mm increments, up to about 10 or 12mm, I think you get going up and down. But that's just a petty niggle, I suppose you could say. So guys, I'm going to sort of try and, you know, draw this to I guess a conclusion and summarize. And I wanted to start with value, and of course, you know, let's forget for a moment the cost of these watches on the, you know, on the secondary market, where they're going for about 40% over retail, and I'm talking about value in terms of retail. Is it worth? And I paid. Can't remember what I paid now. They've gone up again since January when I bought these, but I think this one was just under 18,000 New Zealand, and this one was 17 and a bit thousand. I can't quite remember. It was the other way around. So let's say 18,000 New Zealand dollars. If I wanted to buy this at the moment on the secondary market, I'd probably be looking at putting another 10 on top of that, so about 28,000. And if I wanted to buy this one, the Riddler, I'd probably be needing to put down, I'm going to say about 30,000. So I'd need to, you know, and that's getting close to, you know, 60% more than what I paid for it. I wouldn't pay those prices for these watches, guys. I think that's too much money. However, I will say, if you've got the money and you desperately want one of these, then hey, why not put the money down? You get it tomorrow. There are plenty of these out on the secondary market. Go on Chrono24, you'll see hundreds of these literally for sale. You'll be paying more than retail, and if you've got the money and you don't want to wait, then go ahead. Is that good value? Well, I think that's a very personal decision that you have to make. I can make a decision as to whether I think these are good value at retail, and yeah, look, they're stunning value. I think when you compare the price of this to, you know, what's the going rate at the moment, let's say for something like an Omega Planet Ocean or an Omega Seamaster, there really isn't a GMT that Omega make which is comparable to this, and that's probably the other thing which makes it difficult to rate value. But I think that this is superb value when you look at what you get, the functionality of it. I just think, yeah, look, it's absolutely worth retail. So I'm gonna move on to the kind of the pros and cons, and I've got three pros and three cons of these watches, and really a couple of these are just really being quite picky. So one of the pros of this watch is the build quality, as I mentioned, and the accuracy, the fit and finish. So the quality of the watch is an absolute plus. They are absolutely built fantastically. They're accurate. They're beautiful things to look at, and precise. I think they're good value. That's the second plus. I think they're good value. And the third thing is, and this is kind of a, you know, like an owner's honest perspective of this watch. As a watch collector and somebody who's got a few watches and been through a few watches over the years, this watch never gets boring. I never get fed up wearing it. You know, it never sort of sits on my wrist. And, you know, like with some watches, you get to a point where you think, yeah, I think I'll take this off now and put something else on. It never ever gets boring, this watch. It's got a, I don't know, it's got a charisma, a personality that just you never get fed up with. It's like the best friend that you've got that, you know, you can just sit and talk to them for hours and you never get bored of them and want to go. It's just always there pleasing you, I guess. And I won't finish on the negatives of this watch, but it is worth mentioning them. Look, number one of the three, they're hard to get. Right, they're hard to get at retail, and that's a real shame, because it is a beautiful watch. It is a beautiful piece, and watch collectors and watch admirers, you know, should be able to enjoy this watch, particularly if they can afford it at retail. So that's a pity that it is hard to get. The second is, you cannot wear this watch anywhere, and I think that's something which, you know, I know there's a few of you Rambos out there that say, yeah, I wear my GMT Master on the trains on the metro, no problem, never had a problem. Well, look, that's great, good for you. You know, you haven't been mugged yet. But let's make no mistake, guys, that wearing a watch like this in some places, in some areas, and in some situations, you know, is going to make you a target. And I actually see that as a bit of a negative. And that's why, in some respects, this watch is not a go anywhere, do anything watch. It's not a watch that you can just have one of in your collection and never have another watch again. You're going to need something else if you want to wear a watch in some of the more dodgy areas in town. Depending on how dodgy your town is, of course, depending on where you live. But that's a negative for me. It's not a go anywhere, do anything watch because of that. And thirdly, I just wanted to mention this, and this is a bit of a nitpick, really. And the reason I haven't gone into, you know, sort of setting the dates and showing you how the GMT works is because I think that's the sort of thing that you can see on hundreds of reviews on the net. Thirdly, is there's no quick set date. So if I let this watch run down, and let's say it's the 15th, and the watch ran down on the 1st, and this is, again, it's nitpicking, guys, so bear with me, I'd have to pull the crown out, and I'd actually have to rotate the hands, 25 times almost. The hour hand would have to go around 25 times around the circuit before I got the date to where it is today, because it's not a quick set date. So I'd like Rolex to address that when they upgrade the movement for these watches, which they will at some point, I'm sure. I'd like them to address that so that they can somehow get a quick set date in there as well. But like I say, it's a nitpick, guys. So there you go. There's a summary for you of the GMT Master 2. Like I say, I feel very privileged to have these two watches. They'll stay with me, you know, for as long as I'm around, and I'll always enjoy them and cherish them. They're just fantastic watches. I wear them frequently. I haven't put any big scratches or dings in them or anything like that, but they've certainly, you know, they're starting to show a few signs after a year of me wearing them. You know, there's the odd little swirly here and there, and it will pick them up as we go. More noticeable on the Oyster bracelet here because of these polished center links. They tend to show the scratches a bit more. And there you have it. So guys, if you have any questions for me on the watch or the review or anything else watch related, please do put your questions in the comments. Please do also, if you've enjoyed this video, I'm going to be making many more like this. I'm enjoying the process of making the videos. I'm enjoying having the channel. So if you're enjoying the content that I'm putting on, please do like and subscribe. Like I say, I've mentioned it before, it really encourages me to keep going. And thanks very much, guys. I've got a few more videos lined up, which you'll see over the next week or two. And thanks, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.